In late April 2007, the McCanns decided to travel to Portugal for a family holiday. In the pink pants climbing the stairs to the plane is Madeleine.
Oopsie, you all right?
It was the McCanns' first overseas holiday as a family, and they went with 3 other couples.
Cheer up, Jerry, we're on holiday.
It's a small resort. It was out of season, end of April, beginning of May, and it was incredibly quiet. We felt very relaxed there, very relaxed.
A couple of things about that is we like to hear people speak for themselves how they felt, not for we. Then we look at anything that's repeated. So we have the word relaxed, repeated. We have the word very repeated. So very relaxed, and not for himself, Jerry, but for both of them speaking. Okay. So if they're speaking together, that's appropriate. They're now speaking. He's now speaking of their emotion together, and that's not always so usual. And they are telling us how very relaxed they are. This is narrative storytelling. This is setting a scenario. We call it the normal factor. If you take a 7-year-old child and you say to the child, once upon a time, on a day that was just like every other day, the child will sit up knowing that what's about to happen was unlike any other day. Mm-hmm. That's called the normal factor. If someone says, I'm a normal man, what they're saying to you is either they themselves or someone else has said, you're not normal. Okay? It's unnecessary. Well, here, what we call this as a need to persuade that this was a normal day is telling us he knows it's anything but. Mm. That's storytelling. That's when those in law enforcement will say, I feel like they're storytelling. They're actually narrative building. They're bringing your emotions into an account. Instead of saying, my daughter's missing. I don't know what she's experiencing. I don't know who she's looking at. I don't know if they're giving her medicine. With that urgency, not only did they wax nostalgic, but now they're allowing you to enter into their emotions, and I want you to make sure that you understand my emotions were very relaxed. So at some point you say, wow, you sure seem to need to convince me that it was a normal, relaxing day. Why do you have to convince me of that?
In the evening, the children were put to bed by 7:30, before the adults had dinner together down at the pool. From where they ate, Kate and Jerry could see the back of their apartment and left the door unlocked.
If you measure it directly from the back of the apartment as a straight line to where we're dining, it's only 50 metres.
50 metres?
That's a direct line now.
49.4 on Google if you want to be really specific.
Madeleine and the twins slept in a room at the front of Villa 5A. Kate and Jerry believed their shuttered bedroom window, overlooking the car park and street, was closed and locked. Every half an hour, the parents would take turns to check on each other's children.
We thought that was the best thing, and it seemed to work absolutely fine, and we didn't have any problem right until the Thursday morning when Madeleine said, why didn't you come when we cried last night? We thought, that's odd.
And what Kate had said was 49.4 on Google, if you want to be really specific. And I asked the question, who would want to be really specific in this case? Well, the investigators would be. When a child goes missing, the innocent parent's brain never shuts off. This is why they don't sleep, not just the anxiety, but they replay everything in their mind due to a hormonal rush. The fight or flight hormone is elevated, it's up there. In this hormonal increase, their mind goes to detail, particularly when they try to sleep. They will often call the voicemail of a detective and say, I just thought of this and I just thought of that. Always on alert, high alert. Here we have this type of high alert detail, but not about Madeleine, about justifying themselves. So with that context, the context now is they are concerned for themselves. When a child goes missing, this is very personal to a mother, and this is very personal to a father. No matter what, when a child falls, a father feels responsible. The father didn't protect the fall, even though he really has no reason to blame himself. We do that. It's just natural. Until Madeleine said, or when Madeleine said, why didn't you come when we cried last night? How old was Madeleine when
Yeah,
This,
three, nearly 4. Yeah.
Sure. As a parent, as a grandparent, and someone who taught parenting classes for years, many years ago, children are by nature narcissistic. A child will say, when I cried, not we. The child is not going to show concern at that age for little babies unless, two things, unless the child is a little bit older, 5 or 6, and the child is parentified, meaning the neglect in the home has been so severe that the 5 or 6-year-old is being the parent to others.
It just seems too much of a coincidence that she made that comment and then that happened that night.
Yes, what she's now doing is she's floating doubt for people. She's floating doubt. And she's going to do it more intensely coming up in a moment here. But she's allowing for people to enter into an emotion that doesn't exist. And this is very important in statement analysis. When we experience something that is emotionally charged, I once had a man point a 9mm gun at my head as he was robbing someone in a drug robbery. After it was over, I called police to make the report. I was fine. A couple hours later, I shook with emotion. Like, what just happened? The reason being, it takes time for us to process emotions. If I were to tell you a truthful account of what happened, it's not riveting. It would sound very boring. If I process all the emotions years later and I tell it in a storytelling, I would say this. I once stood in the darkness, and when a man pointed the 9mm gun at my head, the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. And I would tell a story to engage you into the emotions. We call that artificial placement of emotions. Editing, storytelling, narrative building. By the way, I'm not sure if anyone is paying attention at this point. There's a missing child here that I've had no concern expressed for. This is why this interview jumped out at me.
All right.
She's actually bringing to the point where the 3-year-old child is some sort of intuitive expert.
Right.
Your child is missing. What are you doing? When are you going to talk about that?
Looking back now, you think that could have been your one chance to save her?
Well, as soon as I discovered that Madeleine had been taken, it just hit me straight away what she'd said that morning, and I just thought, my God, someone tried the night before.
Okay, in statement analysis, we have a number of sensitivity indicators that are very closely associated with deception. In fact, in this sentence itself, there's enough to conclude deception. First of all, she is infusing emotion into reporting what just should have been said. Second of all, she's going to a conclusion. She didn't say, as soon as I saw that Madeleine was missing. She said, had been taken. She didn't know that. What parents of missing children do is they report their child missing. They don't know if someone took them. They don't know what happened or if the child ran away. By jumping to the conclusion, she wants to make sure that you know there's a kidnapping. She has a need to persuade the audience there was a kidnapping. The need to persuade itself underlies the weakness. Then the inclusion of the emotions at the perfect point of the statement tells us that's artificially placed there, narrative building. Then we have the infusion of deity. This is often found statistically in deceptive people. They're looking for a greater witness than their own words. When I ask someone, why should I believe you? Because I told the truth. Because I'm telling you the truth. The weight of testimony is because it's true. Which says basically, if you don't believe me, you're an idiot. Get a new job. You shouldn't even be investigating. Because I told the truth. The burden is on you because I'm free because I told the truth. No matter how much you dig, you'll never find contrary because it's truth. The entire weight of the argument is based upon truth. If someone says, I didn't steal the money, why should I believe you? Because I'm telling the truth. 99.9% north, they're telling the truth. That's how powerful it is. They're basing their denial upon truth. When someone has a need to bring in a divine witness to what they're saying, and here in this case of doing that, she's making the assertion that Madeleine had been taken, which is already conclusionary, then calling on a divine witness by the inclusion of the word God. Okay? We could indicate here deception by itself and be confident that she's not telling the truth either. And we know that at this particular point in the statement, her concern should not be what a 3-year-old thought, but what my 3-year-old is going through right now. And that again is missing.
On Thursday night, Kate put her daughter to bed for the last time.
But my memory of that evening is really vivid. I mean, she was really tired, but she was just cuddled up on my knee, and we read a story. And we also had some treats. We had some crisps and biscuits. And then after they'd done the usual kind of toilet teeth, we went through to the bedroom and read another story, If You're Happy and You Know It. Yeah.
When she moves into experiential memory of what happened, she can choose anything she'd like to tell us. The words she chooses are going to be important. So my memory of that evening, first of all, we have the word that, which distanced herself from that night, and which could be appropriate because it's chronologically it's distant. She said, it's really vivid. It's really vivid. And that's interesting because that type of clarification comes when there's a hormonal increase. The fight or flight hormone, that cortisone and others that rise in the body to the brain, brings great clarity of thought. But if this was a normal, quiet, happy evening, what would cause such vividness in her memory? So what she's doing is she's narrative building, but she's telling us that this night was anything but normal. Now, this is my assertion to the viewers. By saying it's really vivid, she's choosing these words. She's telling us, she wants us to believe that her memory is very strong with details. It's not just vivid, it's really vivid. And I believe her. I mean, she was really tired. Now, she is using her own words. We must believe her. We must listen to her. I believe that her memory of that evening is very vivid because her hormones were on super high alert. I believe that Madeleine was really tired, and that Madeleine's tiredness is important to this case enough that she's mentioning it here. We should be listening and believing her. But she just cuddled up on my knee, and we read a story. And we also had some treats. This is a portrayal of a really good mom. Okay? Now, I'm asking the viewers to enter into not reality, but the verbalized perception of reality. She's telling you, my memory is really strong for a reason. I believe her. Madeleine was really tired, and there's a reason why that's here too. And I'm a really good mom. She has a need to tell us this while her child is missing. Okay? This is often an indication of neglect or abuse. Go back and listen to her words. My memory of that evening is really vivid. I mean, she was really tired. And I think that investigators should consider the possibility that Madeleine was given something that made her very tired so she would sleep and not disrupt the dinner. That is not uncommon. In fact, this is somewhat sad to report. I once had to investigate a physician who was accused of drugging children. And he spoke plainly to me and said, I give them cough syrup because their parents are abusive. The state cannot take the children away from the parents, but I know they're abusive. And by giving them a teaspoon of a type of cough syrup that will help them sleep, the parents' drug night will not be interrupted, and the child won't suffer even more so. It was a dreadful decision that he made, and he didn't practice medicine very long after that, as you can probably imagine, but it's something much more common than people would believe. We have not only that, but we have a doctor here who would have access to that sort of thing.
You say that night, right? The night that something happened, if it happened. Are you convinced that it's the night that they said, or do you think it could have been a different night, a previous night?
Oh, it could be the previous night. This could
or previous, not necessarily the date they've said.
Yeah, that's a very good point, because usual is given. Usual is given. What she could be talking about is patterns. Speaking of patterns, if this child was given something to make her sleep, it wouldn't have been the first time. And that's what that could suggest.